All right, the DIY delay from Amazon, it's the same as the one from AliExpress, or at least it is the same as the one that was from AliExpress with other videos that are up there. So the first thing I'll say is thank you to people who posted videos that encouraged me to solder and figure it out. That's my first circuit card I've ever done. The switch ones, hold on, it's easier to zoom. It won't. The switch ones, that was the last thing I put. Well, not quite the last, but as you can see, the last thing I put in was soldered very well. But I got all different size bumps there, and I made a few mistakes and had to use the solder sucker, to get the mistakes off, so the traces didn't make contact. And some joints are bigger than others, but my friend Nick, he knows electronics, he looked at it, he said, "You did very good." Well, that's good, and it works. But I took it apart, I cut the wires, and I took it out of the other box. Before I show you why I did that, I'll show you the directions. All these marks on the directions, these are from me. And like, you don't have to. I'll just tell you what I did. This is the box I made for it, a bigger box. The box it was in was too small. All right, I'll show you that first. This is cardboard, right? It's cardboard. So basically, cardboard guitar pedal. I made another cardboard guitar pedal. You already saw that one in the last video, maybe. There's the other cardboard guitar pedal. I still have to fix it, and it's not finished. It's going to have a 5-way selector switch and a volume booster. This is the box that it came with. I painted that on there. I tried to wipe it off. I messed it up. But it's way too small. And even if I could fit, this was a disappointment with the kit, actually. One screw was blundered, which, that's not a big deal, but one screw was a stamped defect, unusable. I'd show it to you, but I threw it in the scrap box there. Then the other thing is I had to file the bottom part of the case just to fit the battery in it. And certainly the switch was where it was supposed to be. But this battery, it would barely fit in there. I mean, it was just not. This box is very small. Then the other thing is these jacks have a slope on them. And I don't believe the slope is just for a marker. I think the slope is so that the wires can come up over them. But personally, I'm not fond, even if I didn't make the circuit, of having to push something down into the box where there's wires pressing against other components and, just barely fitting in there and putting pressure down on it, because some of these components are what they call a laydown. See, it's a laydown, so that the jack can fit right over them. Then the other thing is, when these two jacks go together, hold on a second. Well, I can only have one hand here. The stems that come out off these jacks, yes, I started cutting stuff. I'm going to redo it. At first, I was going to resolder it to be like directionally conducive to fitting in this box. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to mess with it. And I made this box, which, as you can see, is a lot more room, a lot more depth. So I'm good there. But what happens is, even if you were to put both these slopes facing up so that the wires can go over them without getting pinched, or down so that they can go over the components without crushing components, the tabs run into each other. So you have to turn them opposite of each other so the slope doesn't work out. You obviously can't have the tabs crashing into each other, and you can barely fit them in the box together at the same time. And to put them in first, which I'd already contemplated, and solder them, would be very difficult to do because you can't get to it. So, I mean, you could do that. Another thing I discovered was, and I wish I had known because I could have soldered it to the card first, this LED does slide out of its bezel. Well, I didn't know that. Found that out after it got a little heat to it. So, the other thing is that was notable. I don't know if they all will. This came with a 72. I'm assuming that could be 1972. Texas Instruments with the shape of the Texas state on it. Actual old Texas Instruments chip, which I was like, wow, a Texas Instruments chip, 1972 or number 72, right? Texas Instruments chip. I was like, wow, how cool is that, right? So, all right. This circuit is very bright. When I play my guitar, it sounds dark after I turn this off. The circuit is very bright, but I will say this. I may use it in my effects loop. I will say this. As bright as it is, and being what they call an analog delay, not digital, it doesn't tick or clap or distort or make any terrible noise. Like the delay sounds very good. Hopefully it still works when I solder it back together, because I was ramming it around in this beautiful box that I made, trying to make it work. I was so proud of it. Anyhow, I'll use this for something else, maybe for a compressor, a booster, or a bypass switcher or something small, right? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. You gotta have a variable temperature soldering iron. What someone said is this is probably not a good kit to start with. I started with it because it's what I wanted. And I had some mechanical experience. Here's a part sheet. Excuse me, hold on. First, the only thing I have to drink over here is this, and I'm not drinking that. So I went through all my part sheets, and I checked off everything, not the yellow, but the purple dots, and I checked off everything and made sure everything was in the package. It was when I first started realizing there were some substitutions. Like for here, it says a 16-pin chip socket, which, yes, there is 8 and 8, 16-pin chip socket, but it also comes with an 8-pin socket, which is not listed, but clearly is listed on the board. The other thing is there was a substitution here. There was a few substitutions, like for instance, and you have to be able to use your common sense on things like this. It's a 560, but it says 561. And then that little O symbol, that must mean picofarad, I would assume. And that's a tiny one. Pico is tiny. So like things like that I had to learn. And I like that they put this, because I didn't know this. A transistor is known as an IC, or an integrated circuit. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I learned something new. There was a few substitutions here. They had crossed this one off. I didn't cross that off. This one was a substitution. On the board, it is a 223, and this board is accurate to the board. But then it is a 273, J, F75. And then that's the other thing. Like if it tells you here it's microfarads, a U, or the little U in the F, I guess that's called a microfarad. Or if it tells you it's an M, it's a meg. It may not say that on the capacitor. It may have, like a model name like this one does, F75, 273J, which in no wise is 223. Maybe that's why the circuit is so bright, which, although I do not like bypassing it and then my guitar suddenly being dark, so that makes it unusable in a pedal chain for me. Well, not unusable, but I've gotten down to the point where pedals are novelties, so I'm probably not going to set up another pedal board. I have a driver board. I'm not going to put it on there. Anyway, the other thing was the values of these pots were different as well. For instance, it'll say 50, but on the pot it'll say 503. So, you have to roll things around a few times and deduce. You have to make deductions and discernment. Like the wiring, there's 4 ground holes. Does not tell you what to do. I looked at pictures on the internet. Thank you to people who post things. Thank you. That's why I'm doing this, even though I'm tired and I don't want to, but I'm going to because it's good to encourage people to do useful, conducive things. There, he wired off of those 2 grounds, or was it those 2 grounds? Which ones did I wire off of? No, the ones by the switch. So I just followed his lead, and I had to pause the video to see where the wires were. Nobody explained it. So I soldered off of those 2 grounds, and then here it tells you that your ring and your PWC also go together, but the PWC goes to here, which means you have to twist 2 wires together and solder it at once, because you don't want to keep applying heat to the whichever one here says PWC, PWB, PWC, right? Power circuit, power, I don't know, the bus, which would be the fat strip on the back of the card, maybe. I don't know what that stands for. And then the 9-volt. And then so I soldered 2 wires to that, and that would be, I cut it because that's the other thing. You can't put this in the pedal after you've soldered it. So like you have to roll around the kit and use deduction, use your brain. This is not a good kit to start with if you're nervous. I don't think so. The circuits are very close together. There's a lot of components. I started with it. It worked, but obviously I'm still having difficulties, and now I've made a box. The circuit is working. The other pedal, the circuit's not working, but the box came out great. And I just ordered a new pull spring for it, by the way, if you watched that other video. Anyway, so can you see here? I don't know. Yeah, see, I got 2 wires soldered there, the white ones. I twisted them together and soldered them in one shot. Boom. All right, so that you got to know. And it had to be screwed into the box. So that was like the last thing I soldered. The wires that they give you are very short. They're very short because that's all you could fit in the box. They are silicone wires, which is good. They handle a lot of heat. They don't melt easy. They do nick very easy. They will nick, but they don't melt easy. And they're very flexible. But the problem is they don't give enough wires. It says here on the thing 20 wires, and then it's been reduced to 10 or 16, whatever the number was that they gave me. But luckily I had some silicone wire. So, all right, so I'm trying to think of what else you might want to know. The standoff on the switch, it has 2 nuts. One is the standoff, stays on there and goes on the back, not this board, this board goes on the back of the board. Well, it could go on this one, but I'm going to put it on that one to keep the switch from pulling apart. So this goes on the, and I'll screw it all the way down. Goes on the back of this, and then a plastic washer, lock nut, and another nut goes on top. So they don't tell you things like that in the directions. The battery snap has a separate loophole here, so you can run it either off of this side of the card or the back of the card. I opted for the back of the card. Turns out it barely fit in there, and I was squeezing and crushing, and I'm trying to look for where I'd actually made a little cardboard piece that fit in there to cover up the card so nothing would short to the box, which is annoying. The circuit sounds good. Oh, there's the card. I took their business card and I cut it. And it tells you on here that they'll help you with any questions you have. But I had put that on the back of the circuit card to keep it from shorting. What else do you want to know? Yeah, because these were things that I would have wanted to know. Oh, yeah, here you go. Here's another one. Like, for instance, here, I got a little carried away. And I said, oh, 12K, 12K, 12K. Okay, there's my 12Ks. Boom, 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 boom. I started loading them all up. Then, as you can see, I circled it. I'm like, whoa, that's a 42K and a 24K. Whilst all the rest of them are 12K. So don't assume anything, because unsoldering a very tiny circuit card is not fun. It's not easy and it's not fun. So I will tell you the order I went in. saw two different people do it different ways. One guy starts with the resistors, which may be the smarter route because resistors can handle the most heat, Nick told me. So, yeah, that might be the smartest route to start with the resistors. But I started with the pin connectors, and I kept the chips far away from the board. I didn't do anything with the chips. 72 Texas Instruments chip. How cool is that? So, yeah, that's what I started with. Then I did the resistors. I said, look, if I can't even solder these chip buses on there, I might as well quit, right? So I started with those. And that's what the one guy did, whilst the other guy that I saw the video of, Colby, maybe it was Colby, started with his resistors, which was cool that he did that. That makes sense, right? You get warmed up. So soldering, depending on the size of the tip, you have to find the right temperature. This is an $8 soldering iron, so don't be fooled, right? I did mess up the tip. You know, there's plenty of videos on YouTube, how to tin a tip, how to care for a tip. You can see this tip is mangled. The other thing I did was I threw it whilst hot into my tip jar and it bent, and there's a coating on there. And once you start wrecking the coating, you know, only one side of the tip starts working after a while. No matter how much you flux it and tin it, it just won't tin anymore. So I just want to tell you all the things that were complicated for me, as if I succeeded. It's still sitting here on the table, right? But it did. I played it. It sounded great. I had zero battery or I would have made you a video of it. But, you know, smashing it in that box and crushing these wires up against the circuits and barely fitting over these jacks and having to push the thing down and then file out a piece of the box, which was no fault of mine, you know, file out the bottom portion of the box here so that it would close over the battery, because the battery absolutely would not fit in there, even though that is where the card goes. You know, then the other reason, you know, like for instance, this battery connector, this one's not that flimsy, but it is one of the flimsy ones. I like the hard battery connectors where you can just rip them off and they don't bend or crack or come apart. But this one needs to be on here to go in that box if you can manage it, because it just will not fit otherwise. And even so, it barely fits. Honestly, for this circuit, that's my opinion. I recommend you just get a bigger box. Maybe, you know, imitate this, you know, space them out further. Drill it out before you start, maybe. But see, that would be the other thing, like these jacks. They don't have to go on the inside of the circuit card. They can go on the top side of the circuit card if you have a wider box, which is what I'm going to do with this one. So, yeah, this box is very small. I know I did such a pretty job, and then I blundered it because I tried to wipe it off, see? Well, I tried to keep it simple. I shouldn't have even wrote echo. Before I wrote echo, that looked very cool, right? But I was like, I'm not writing delay. I'm going to write like a hillbilly word on there, and I wrote echo, right? But that looks cool. Delay, volume, reverb, which is actually not the order. Repeats, sorry. Actually, that is the order they're in, right? All right, so, what else do I want to tell you? Yeah, make sure you understand why it's telling you to lay down components, and it isn't for heat. They're telling you to lay down components because of how tight it fits into this box. And I heard the other two guys, or at least one of them anyway, mention the same thing. It was very, very tight in this box. It's quite a challenge. If you're up to the challenge, it's interesting, but in my opinion, I'd rather not have a single wire crushed or pinched against a single component. So I built a cardboard pedal, right? And I laid it out. That's going to be my LED. These are going to be countersunk with a Forstner to where these knobs, the base of these knobs, are countersunk into the pedal. Well, because of the thickness of the cardboard, see? Right? It's way thicker than thing. This is my recorder under here, which I do not remember how to use. So yeah, that's it. Substitutions, which 560, 561, that was an easy one to figure out, but 273J as opposed to 223 was not easy to figure out, which would be a resistor. Was it? Which one was it? No, it wasn't that one. It's on the other side of the board. It was a capacitor over here. And you need to have this kind of a magnifier on your magnifying glass because whilst it's printed extremely well, maybe with a laser or something, or a very tiny stamper, it's almost impossible to see with a regular mag. Which I got to polish the glare off of this one, right? That's annoying, isn't it? Very difficult to read with a regular magnifying glass. You need to have one of these little, whatever that is, a 10 times thing. And as you can see, I staged 2 magnifying glasses together there, so I wasn't fooling around. I'd rather have I got this little light. It was $10 on Amazon. That helped, but I think I want like a halo, like a huge magnifier so I can sit back and work like this, instead of like this. So, all right, so I'll show you on the card here. I'm just trying to say a lot of things in a short amount of time, make the video short. Put these up here. So as you can see, and the LED, I'm gonna have to put new wires on the LED because I cut them short for the other card. That was these ones here. They don't tell you a lot of things. You find out the hard way. That is the directions. It doesn't tell you much. I'm not laughing at it, but I'm laughing because hopefully the things I've told you helps. So first thing you do is do your checklist. Put everything back in the bag. Be very patient. Don't just dive headfirst, especially if this is your first build. Even if it's your second or third build, this was not an easy pedal. There's a lot of pieces. But if you take your time and you follow the checklist, right? I haven't reached success, so here I am. I'm a professor, right? All right, so there. I'm going to put those are going to be countersunk because of the thickness, right? Oh, and I followed another person's advice, and I put, this one only gets 2 on it. This only gets 2. I put shrink wrap on the legs, which I thought was clever and a good idea. If you are going to cram it into this little box, you might want to put a piece of tape around these tabs, put a card over the back of the circuit so it doesn't short to which even Boss Pedals even does that, right? But yeah, this is a real cram in that box. So as you can see now, where the switch is right here, I'm going to have plenty of room for my battery. Don't forget the thickness here. So I got plenty of room for my battery. I might even be able to paste a battery clip in there, that other battery clip that I have. So yeah, these aren't going to get drilled yet. Everything else will get drilled till I figure out how I'm putting those. I'm screwing the screw, and yes, I might as well put it on there now. Oops, I'm dropping my stuff here. I have a duvet cover, right? I'm not going to put a duvet cover on my pillow, so somebody gave me this one. It's silver gray, but I covered up the machine. I got to learn how to use it again. I don't know how to use it. Plus, I can't record in here. Like these neighbors, they can't stand me because when they talk to me, I say, I don't talk to you. I don't bother you. Leave me alone, right? And I do because they're not nice people, right? And they do bother me. They harass me constantly. Tape notes to my door. Literally tape notes to my door, shove things under my door, complain about me to the management, everything. They're not nice people. They're nosy and they're perverted. And God bless them and may they live forever. So I'm screwing that screw all the way down. But the reason I'm going to leave that screw on there is so that when I screw this, it's not pulling the housing of this apart, but it'll be pulling against this nut, which is on the threads, which will put no tension on this switch housing. See, so that's why I'm going to leave that nut on there. That's the secondary nut, and here's the first one. which goes on top of the lock washer, which goes on top of this beautiful, what is that, nylon, Teflon, nice slick shiny stuff. So is that everything? This is standard. That's tip negative. They don't tell you that either, I don't think, unless you were to figure it out, I guess. It's a standard jack. Some pedals aren't, that is. So I guess that's it. And then when I get it working, I'll demonstrate it. But the delay is very bright, and there's no tone switch. It'd be nice to have a tone control, because it's very bright. I mean, not just the delay, but the dry signal of the guitar is like instantly EQ'd to bright. I wonder if it had to do with this. Where is it? This substitution here. Was it there? That one? No, it was over here. This one right here. That one. Maybe the substitution had something to do with it. That is a capacitor. Would be maybe a tone capacitor. But Nick, when I told Nick, I said, Nick, it's very bright, and the delay sounds good, but it's very bright. He said, that is good, He's right, maybe, to put it in my effects loop and set it very subtle. It gets a good slapback sound, and it gets a good long delay as well. So there it is. There's my cardboard box. Guess that's about it. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to tell you, because I did have a frustrating time with it. But oh yeah, that's what I did. Like, I started doing the yellow on here, but I decided to just do it here. As I did everything, I say, oh, okay, I'm finished with all my resistors. Now I'm finished with all my capacitors. But instead, I just decided to do it on the board. And whilst I was systematically trying to install parts, like, I'm going to do all my resistors, I would just eventually, whilst I had them in separate piles, because of some of the substitutions, because of some of the odd names of things, not necessarily matching what, its value actually is, I did have to, just go with whatever piece I picked up and say, all right, I'll see. But then what I started doing was I said, you know what, forget about that. I started looking on my board, which is very clearly labeled. Yeah, you can see some of that. Watch for your positives and negatives. These capacitors are not directional, but I always put the lettering in the direction of the lettering on the board, just for neatness, I suppose. I had to look that up. I didn't know that all capacitors are not directional. Your diode is directional. Your large voltage capacitors, these tall cans, they are directional. These chip cards are directional, which they have a little notch to show you which way they go. So things are very specific. And then as far as the chips, it didn't tell which direction they go in. As if it matters, I don't know. But I put it in the direction of the writing on the card. That's how I did it. So, a lot of assuming. I was like, wow, this thing's not going to work. But it totally did. So, yeah, if you're scared, a scared feeling, not a good pedal to start with. Start with a fuzz pedal or something simple. You'll still get the pleasure of, soldering. So then by the end of the card, I had my soldering down. What you want to do, if you have the card rocking around, you're better off tilting it to the side that you can press down on. You want to put pressure on the spot. Poke your wire or your component through, bend the tabs over. Some people, that was the other thing we talked about, they don't like to bend the tabs. I bent the tabs because I wanted my components to stay tight, and I didn't want to solder twice. So anytime when I did bend them, I bent them in the direction of the circuit or far away into I wouldn't say into the blue because this is green, but out into the open, where if the solder was to chase directionally, it would not chase into something else. So that's something to consider also. But you want to put pressure against what you're soldering, like that. Get it hot quick, and then add the solder. And then what I found was this is thin solder. I don't know what the number is. See how I put it on my spinner here? I'm so proud of that. It's just a couple alligator clips hanging there, right? And it spins. But this one is Radio Shack solder. I can't read that. Maybe you can see it. 0.032 diameter. All right, it's metric. It's metric solder. Use standard solder. All right, so what I did, you press down with the soldering iron, and then I'm trying to get it in the frame here. Oh, there I am. Where is the camera on this phone? Hold on a second. I can't tell where the camera on the phone is. Is it on the bottom? No, it's near the top, right there. All right, so then hold the iron on it, and I had mine set at a slightly lower temperature, which I'll show you. You know, yours may vary. Like I said, that's an $8 soldering iron. Hold it on there for a moment, and then I lost my solder again. And then solder. I was putting about 3/8 to a half an inch. No, about a half an inch or 5/8. A half inch to 5/8 of solder for a little bead. And I took tips, you know, I followed things, always shake off the excess solder like that, you know. I use this big heavy jar to hold it here. Don't slam it because a hot tip will bend, which I found out the hard way also. And flow the solder, and as soon as you see the solder flowing in the parts, pick up so it wicks up, right? Otherwise it'll wick off to the side to another circuit, which I did a few times. But as you can see, I was mostly successful in soldering. But as you can see how close they are, it's awesome. Now I will say this about this card. This card is very good. These are tinned holes. Don't ream them, because if you ream them, you'll break the circuit. You know, like for instance, you got to use a solder sucker you could break the circuit. I didn't want to ream them. I tried poking them out a few times. I said, no, Michael, don't do that, because then you'll, break that tinned ring there. So what I was going to say about these cards, and this is way better than the old-fashioned stuff maybe. I wouldn't know. I'm not a solder expert, but I've looked at plenty of things and taken plenty of things apart and seen a mess. This will not chase solder to another circuit. It just will not, but it can happen. And if it does, use your solder sucker. It's a good tool. Try to be patient. This is not an easy one. And this is nothing. This is, Nick said, that's not the smallest stuff. This is actually like giant components compared to some stuff he's probably done. So, all right, yeah, but there it is. So this box is going to yield me a lot more room. It's cardboard. I'm going to feel excited about it. I'll do a similar graphic on it, right? I'll just write DVR. Maybe I won't draw the leaf at all. Just write what the control is very tiny there or something with a pencil. I might just write it with a pencil. I even thought about I sanded it and I eased all the edges. I even thought about, just for the vanity of it, redrawing my, redraw my pencil lines across there and leave them so it looks like, schematic. I was so excited about this. I was like, maybe I'll put like a little, do I got a clear piece of plastic? I put a little, recess a little window into it or something. But I did all this by hand, little hand saw and, hand files and sandpaper. And I don't have any large power tools, but I used to. But, so, it took a lot of work to get it flat and everything. All right, so that's it. Hopefully that helps. And in case you didn't see the other video, here's the other cardboard pedal I made, which is basically a wah pedal. And then I ordered a spring because that's a compression spring, and it's supposed to be, I learn things every day. It's called an extension spring is what I need. It pulls tight, right? So I got to put more tension. I made a pulley there instead of using the rack and pinion, right? So I still gotta work out the circuit. The circuit's not working before I even consider putting my 5-way on there, right? All right, I'm not trying to milk for time here, but I'm trying to think if there's anything I neglected to tell you, because that was the whole point of making this video, is to either encourage you or discourage you based on your own thought process. And, not discourage you, but, warn you. you gotta use your head for some of these things, and it's not well explained, and there's not anybody really there to help, but there is, right? Now there's 3 videos of people showing this delay pedal, and this one's a little more explanatory, which also includes information from the other 2 guys. So that's how the interweb works, other than catching criminals and human traffickers. And I'm sorry for calling people names. People are not their sins. I made a smudge stick. I don't worship sage, but I'm totally going to burn it, and make nice smells. But I have to be careful because I have fire alarms. So I don't think it's going to work. So whatever. Yeah, I don't want to hang up until you need this. I got these off of Amazon. They were just about $8. I'm trying to zoom in on the name there, if it'll let me. If I get under the light here, maybe. There they are. Maybe you can see that. These are very good. Where's the tip? Where is the tip? They come with the tip, but I don't see the tip. Where is it? Wait a minute. You need the tip for them to keep them closed, number 1. Number 2, they are extremely sharp. There's a tip. Right? I know I don't want to lose that. Excuse me, I should have had a drink ready. All right, forget it. Yeah, right. These are very sharp. You can't cut hard things like a guitar wire, but they're angled, which is nice. And right to the very tip, there's the name again. Right to the very tip, they'll shave solder, they'll shave component ends, they'll shave through multiple strand wire, no problem. Right on the very tip. I'm trying to see if I can find one that I may have. Yeah, you can see one right there, exactly in the center of the screen. Now in the bottom corner, see, right there in the center screen. That's sheared off right there. So yeah, you can shear through solder and everything with them. It's a good tool. You need this. You need little sharp pliers. The one man used very primitive, cutters. And he said he was having a rough job, but he did it that way on purpose. That was Kobe. To challenge himself to see, if a primitive caveman could build this pedal. He didn't say that. I added that part. But that's it. All right. And then I'm going to put it together, which I already heard it work. It works great. It was breaking my heart that it was smashed. Like, look, the box is even slightly bent. And I had to file the backside of this to get it to close. It wouldn't fit the battery. It was, the battery was scraping to get it in there. The battery clip was scraping to get in there no matter what direction I turned it in, and the switch can only go where the switch goes, right? So it's a very tight box. Be prepared for that. All right, I think that's it. I'm just rolling around in my head because you know how it is. I'll hang up and then I'll say, oh, snap, there was one thing I wanted to say about that was important. So I'm just looking at the card here. Oh, the pots, you can turn them any way you want. You can turn them any way you want in there. And if you put shrink wrap on your tabs. You can bend the tabs, together. That's why I harnessed them like this. But the only problem with that is they all, have this slot in it, and there's a set screw on those knobs. So say you got one like this and then another one like that. Then when you go to set the set screw at all the same point, one of them may keep falling into that slot, which is what was happening to me. So, but you can turn those in any direction you want. I mean, they're still pots. Wherever you put the knob is where the arrow is going to point. So because this is the only end of the pot you use. You don't use this part whilst it's under the housing. So now the only other part, and I was talking to Colby about it on the interweb, is that maybe he doesn't want me to say that I have some foul content. I don't have foul content. I talk about foul things, right? But maybe he doesn't want me to mention his name. Whatever. Sorry, Colby. I appreciate you posting your video. So, what was I going to say about it? I forgot. Oh, we were talking about shielding. That a metal box is actually a shield. Whilst it may not connect grounds to each other, it does create a shield housing, a grounded shield. So I may have to foil the inside of this or something, but I'm going to try it without doing that and see what happens. Maybe be fine. And honestly, I'm excited. I would like to try that D.I.Y. People keep talking about it picks up AM radio. And it's made of plastic and it picks up AM radio. And I used to have, and I still do have in the drawer, the first pedal that I ever had. And it would pick up truck drivers on a CB. And there was a concert thing at Randall Island on this one recording I heard, and you can hear the so-and-so cussing and swearing, getting angry because it's saying oil prices down today, coming through his fuzz box or his wah pedal, whichever it was. But I don't know. I like primitive things, but if I was trapped on an island with only an electric guitar and an amplifier and no pick, I'd probably want to at least have a reverb, a delay, and an overdrive, and some coconuts and a banana. And a washing machine. That's about it. All right.